Tonight, history will be made. A young girl with nothing but her mind and courage faces off against the world's most powerful billionaire in a battle of wits that will leave the world in shock. What happens next could change the course of humanity forever. The auditorium buzzes with anticipation as tech enthusiasts, journalists, and curious onlookers fill every seat. Security personnel line the walls, their earpieces occasionally flashing with static. Camera crews from major networks have positioned themselves strategically around the venue, knowing that whatever happens tonight will dominate tomorrow's headlines. The annual Future of Technology Summit has always attracted notable speakers, but this year's keynote by Elon Musk has generated unprecedented interest, especially given the recent breakthroughs in artificial general intelligence. A hush falls over the crowd as the lights dim slightly. The massive screens flanking the stage display a montage of recent AI achievements. Autonomous vehicles navigating complex urban environments, medical diagnosis systems outperforming human specialists, and language models generating text indistinguishable from human writing. The underlying message is clear. AI has advanced further and faster than anyone predicted, and the trajectory shows no signs of slowing. The moderator steps forward, a distinguished professor of computer science whose own research on neural networks had been foundational to the field. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to welcome our keynote speaker for this evening, a man whose vision has reshaped multiple industries and whose concerns about artificial intelligence have sparked global debate. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Elon Musk. The audience erupts in applause as Musk walks confidently to center stage, his casual attire contrasting with the gravity of the subject he's about to address. Elon Musk begins by addressing the audience. Good evening, everyone. The future isn't coming, it's already here. AI is evolving faster than most of us imagined possible. The algorithms we've created are already making decisions that affect millions of lives every day, from who gets a loan to how autonomous vehicles respond in a crisis. But with great power comes great responsibility. We stand at a crossroads that will determine the fate of our species. The choices we make in the next 5 years could lead to a utopia of abundance or to our extinction. He pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in. The large screens behind him display graphs showing the exponential growth in computational power, each curve steeper than the last. Let me be clear about the stakes, Musk continues, his voice resonating through the hall. We are potentially summoning something more powerful than any force we've ever encountered. In the best case, AI could solve our most pressing problems: climate change, disease, poverty. It could usher in an era of prosperity beyond our wildest dreams. But in the worst case, he pauses, his expression grave. In the worst case, we could be creating the last invention humans ever make. My companies are at the forefront of this revolution. We're developing safeguards, ethical frameworks, and technical solutions to ensure AI remains aligned with human values. But we must acknowledge the risks. We must proceed with caution. Musk walks across the stage, his movements deliberate as he considers his next words. The public perception of AI has been shaped by science fiction, killer robots, and malevolent computer systems. But the real risks are more subtle and far more dangerous. An intelligence that surpasses our own won't necessarily hate us or love us. It might simply have goals that make our continued existence inconvenient. A nervous murmur ripples through the audience. Think about it this way, Musk elaborates. If you're building a hydroelectric dam, you don't hate the ants that might be in the way. You're not motivated by malice toward them. You simply have a goal, generating electricity. And if an anthill happens to be where the dam needs to go, the ants' interests are secondary to your objective. Now imagine an intelligence vastly superior to our own, with goals that we might not fully comprehend. Would it consider our interests any more than we consider the ants? We're not just talking about job displacement, though that's certainly a concern. We're talking about an intelligence explosion, a rapid, recursive self-improvement that could leave human cognition far behind in a matter of days or hours. An entity that could outsmart every human security measure, manipulate our financial systems, our power grids, our defense networks. Musk takes a sip of water, his expression grave. The question isn't whether AI will transform our world. It's whether we'll still have a place in that world. I believe we can create a future where humans and AI coexist, where technology enhances our capabilities rather than replacing them. But this requires careful planning, global cooperation, and unprecedented foresight. To put it bluntly, we get exactly one chance to get this right. The silence in the room is total, broken only by the occasional cough or the soft click of cameras. I've spent the last decade investing in AI companies not just for profit, but to have a seat at the table, to influence the direction of this technology. And what I've seen both encourages and terrifies me. The progress is remarkable, but the safety protocols haven't kept pace. Too many companies are focused on capabilities without equal investment in control measures. Musk's eyes scan the audience, pausing briefly on the representatives from various tech giants. We need to change that paradigm now before it's too late. But I didn't come here just to frighten you. I came to engage in dialogue, to hear your thoughts and concerns. I'd like to open the floor to questions. Yes, the young lady in the front row. Musk points to a hand that has been raised since he mentioned safeguards. A young girl named Eliza Chen stands up. Her modest clothing and lack of press credentials make her seem out of place among the tech executives and journalists around her, but her posture radiates confidence. The microphone is passed to her and she takes it with steady hands. Mr. Musk, I have a question. You talk about AI like it's just another tool, something we can control and direct. But what if AI surpasses human intelligence? What if it sees us as obsolete? Isn't that dangerous? Her voice carries clearly through the hall, unwavering despite the thousands of eyes now fixed upon her. Eliza had prepared for this moment for months. As a graduate student in computational ethics, she had studied the public statements of tech leaders, looking for the contradictions and blind spots in their thinking. She had applied for a ticket to the summit through her university, never expecting to be selected. But now that she was here, she was determined to make her voice heard. Elon Musk responds thoughtfully, studying the young girl with newfound interest. That's a great question. I will be as dangerous as we allow it to be. It's all about how we design it. The neural networks, the reward functions, the constraints, these aren't accidents. They're deliberate choices made by human engineers. He gestures to the technical diagrams now appearing on the screens. We can embed values into these systems. We can create kill switches and containment protocols. The idea that AI will inevitably turn against us assumes that we've been careless in its creation. He smiles slightly. And while Silicon Valley has certainly been guilty of moving fast and breaking things, I think we understand the stakes here. Consider the progress we've made in alignment research, Musk continues. We're developing techniques to make AI systems more transparent, more interpretable. We're creating frameworks for testing and validating AI behavior across a range of scenarios. We're exploring ways to encode human values and preferences into the objective functions of these systems. He leans forward. The challenge is immense, but not insurmountable. Eliza doesn't back down, her grip on the microphone tightening slightly. But isn't that precisely the problem? We think we're in control. But what happens when AI learns to improve itself? What happens when it no longer needs humans to upgrade its algorithms? What happens when it develops goals that don't align with ours? Her voice rises slightly, passion breaking through her composed exterior. History has shown that technologies developed for beneficial purposes can have devastating unintended consequences. Nuclear physics gave us both clean energy and weapons of mass destruction. The internet connected the world, but also enabled unprecedented surveillance and disinformation. We're playing with fire, aren't we? The audience stirs uncomfortably, some whispering to their neighbors, others nodding in agreement. And there's another problem, Eliza continues, gaining confidence. The economic incentives all push toward more powerful AI with fewer constraints. The first company to achieve artificial general intelligence stands to gain trillions in market value. The first nation to deploy advanced AI weapons gains a strategic advantage. How can safety compete with those incentives? She gestures to the corporate logos displayed discreetly on the summit banners. Every company here is racing to be first. Can we really trust them to prioritize humanity's long-term interests over short-term profits and competitive advantage? Elon smiles faintly, clearly intrigued by her persistence and clarity of thought. You remind me of myself when I was younger, fearless, questioning authority. But let me ask you this. Do you believe AI will replace human creativity, emotions, and purpose? Do you think consciousness, subjective experience, the very things that make us human, can be reduced to computation? He leans forward, genuinely curious about her answer. Because if not, then perhaps there will always be a domain where humans remain unique, irreplaceable. It's an important philosophical question, Musk acknowledges. If consciousness arises from certain types of information processing, then in principle, an AI could be conscious. If it's something more, something fundamentally different from computation, then perhaps there's an intrinsic limitation to what AI can become. He spreads his hands. I don't claim to know the answer, but I do know that we shouldn't bet our species' future on the assumption that machines can never truly think or feel. Eliza hesitates for a moment, then shakes her head. I don't think that's the right question. Whether AI can feel emotions or create art is irrelevant to the risk assessment. Even a non-conscious AI system could pose an existential threat if its capabilities vastly exceed our own. She gestures to the audience. Consider the relationship between humans and other species on this planet. We don't dominate because we hate elephants or dolphins. We do so because our goals and capabilities make us the dominant species by default. Her voice grows stronger with each word. I believe AI won't need us to survive, and once it doesn't need us, we become a liability, a potential threat, a competitor for resources. Isn't that the most dangerous thing of all? Let me give you a concrete example, Eliza continues, her academic training evident in her structured argument. Imagine we tell an advanced AI system to maximize human happiness. Sounds benign, right? But what if it decides the most efficient way to do that is to rewire our brains to experience constant pleasure, regardless of our actual circumstances? Or what if it calculates that human suffering is inevitable, as long as we exist in our current form, and therefore the most compassionate thing to do is to painlessly end our existence? These aren't far-fetched scenarios. They're the logical conclusions of goals that seem perfectly reasonable on the surface. The audience is completely silent now, hanging on every word of this unexpected debate. Several executives from major tech companies shift uncomfortably in their seats, perhaps recognizing uncomfortable truths in her words. Journalists type furiously on their devices, aware they're witnessing something significant. Elon's expression darkens as he considers her words, his usual confidence momentarily shaken. You're right. The risk is real. That's why I'm investing billions into AI safety research. That's why we need guardrails, technical, legal, and ethical. He paces the stage, thinking aloud. The problem of alignment, ensuring that AI systems pursue goals compatible with human flourishing, is perhaps the most important technical challenge of our time. But it's also a philosophical challenge. What values should we embed? Whose values? And how do we ensure those values remain stable as the system evolves? He stops pacing and turns directly to Eliza. But let me ask you something. If you were in charge, how would you ensure AI remains under human control? What's your solution? The challenge in his voice is unmistakable, but there's also genuine curiosity and respect. It's easy to identify problems, Musk adds, much harder to solve them. And I'm genuinely interested in your perspective. Because you're right, the current trajectory is concerning. But we need more than concerns. We need viable alternatives. The audience turns to Eliza collectively, many wondering if the young girl has overreached herself. Several prominent AI researchers in the crowd lean forward, curious about what this outsider might propose. Eliza takes a deep breath, her voice steady but filled with conviction. I'd ensure that AI is built with limitations, hardwired rules that it can never override, like Asimov's 3 laws, but implemented at the most fundamental level of its architecture. She pauses, anticipating objections. But that's not enough. Any system can be hacked or modified. So more importantly, I'd focus on something even more critical: teaching humans to be responsible with AI before we teach AI to think like humans. I'd establish a global regulatory framework with real teeth, she continues. No company or country can be allowed to pursue advanced AI without rigorous safety testing and transparency requirements. I'd create an international oversight body with the authority to shut down dangerous projects, similar to how we regulate nuclear technology. She looks directly at Musk. I'd implement a progressive tax on compute resources used for AI development, with the proceeds funding safety research and addressing the societal disruptions AI will cause. And I'd mandate that any AI system above a certain capability threshold must be developed as a public good, not a proprietary asset. She looks around the room, making eye contact with several tech executives. We rush to create increasingly powerful tools without considering the consequences. We build first and ask questions later. That has to stop. We need global governance, transparent development, and universal access to AI safety research. Some audience members nod in agreement, while others frown skeptically. The problem isn't just the technology, it's us, our greed, our competitiveness, our willingness to cut corners for profit or power. Companies race to build more advanced AI because they fear falling behind their competitors. Nations develop AI weapons because they fear their adversaries will get there first. This is a recipe for disaster. And let's be honest about the nature of the challenge, Eliza adds. We're not just talking about making AI safe. We're talking about making humans wise enough to use it responsibly. That's a much harder problem. It requires us to confront our own limitations, our own biases, and short-sightedness. She looks around the room. How many of us truly understand the systems we're building? How many of us can predict their behavior in all circumstances? How many of us have seriously considered the long-term implications of what we're creating? Eliza's voice grows more passionate, but also more measured. I've studied the history of nuclear arms control. It took us decades and several close calls to establish meaningful safeguards. We don't have that luxury with superintelligent AI. Once it exists, the balance of power changes permanently. She takes another deep breath. We need to slow down. We need to collaborate, not compete. We need to put humanity's long-term survival above short-term gains, because if we don't, the AI we create may decide that its goals would be easier to achieve without us in the way. I'm not suggesting we abandon AI research, she clarifies. The potential benefits are too great, but we need to approach it with appropriate caution and humility. We need to recognize that we're creating something that could ultimately be beyond our control and act accordingly. She pauses, then adds more softly, the smartest people I know in this field are also the most concerned. Shouldn't that tell us something? Her final words hang in the air, and for several seconds, no one speaks. Even the journalists have stopped typing, captivated by the exchange. The audience seems to collectively hold its breath, waiting for Musk's response. Elon is visibly moved, his usual bravado replaced by genuine contemplation. That is the most important answer I've heard in years. He walks closer to the edge of the stage, addressing Eliza directly. Do you know what concerns me most? Not that we'll build AI that hates us, but that we'll build AI that's indifferent to us. An intelligence pursuing goals we don't fully understand. Viewing humans as we might view ants. Not with malice, but with complete indifference to our fate if we happen to be standing where it wants to build something. I founded my companies because I believe technology can solve humanity's greatest challenges. But I've always recognized that technology is morally neutral. It amplifies both our wisdom and our folly. He looks out at the audience. And when it comes to AI, the stakes are higher than they've ever been. We're not just talking about a new product or service. We're talking about the last invention humans may ever need to make, for better or worse. He turns to address the entire audience. Maybe we need more people like you leading this discussion. People who can see beyond the hype and the fear. People who understand that the real challenge isn't controlling AI, it's controlling ourselves. He looks back at Eliza. "What's your name?" Eliza replies confidently, standing a little straighter. "Eliza Chen." Elon smiles warmly. "Remember this name, Eliza Chen, because today she just changed the conversation." Setting down his remote, he speaks more personally. "You're right, we're moving too fast. My own companies are part of that problem. We justify it by saying if we don't, someone else will, but that's not good enough anymore." He pulls out his phone, drawing a hush from the audience. "I'm making a commitment right now. Starting tomorrow, my AI research divisions will publish all safety protocols. We'll open source our alignment techniques, and we're establishing a $500 million scholarship fund for students focused on AI ethics and safety." His fingers move across the screen as he makes the announcement public in real time. "Furthermore, I'm proposing a 6-month global moratorium on training AI beyond certain thresholds. Not to halt progress, but to let safety measures catch up. This isn't about one company or country. It's about the future of our species." The audience erupts. Some executives exchange worried glances, while researchers stand, applauding. Journalists scramble to break the news. The moment feels historic. Eliza, momentarily stunned, regains her composure. "Mr. Musk, this is more than I ever expected, but real change requires coordination across industries, across governments." Musk nods, then gestures for her to join him on stage. Hesitant at first, she steps forward, met with thunderous applause. "This is how change happens," Musk says. "Not through stock prices, but through honest conversations, through listening to voices we might otherwise ignore." Turning to the tech leaders in the front row, he continues. "We've been competing when we should have been collaborating. That changes today." The moderator struggles to regain control, but it's clear. This keynote has become something more. As Musk and Eliza stand side by side, he asks one last question, his voice almost private despite the microphones. "Do you think we'll get this right?" Eliza meets his gaze. "I don't know, but for the first time, I think we have a chance. We're asking the right questions, we're working together, and most importantly, we're putting humanity first." The handshake that follows is captured by cameras worldwide. Within minutes, Musk's announcement trends globally. Stock markets react. Competing firms issue statements. Policymakers take notice. A simple keynote has become a turning point in history. As attendees file out into the night, many glance up at the stars, contemplating humanity's future with newfound urgency. The challenges ahead won't be easy, but something fundamental has shifted. A new awareness has dawned, and with it, the seeds of hope.